Hi everyone, it is Heather with Rose Hill Paper Cottage, and this is the final video for the Quilt Journal series. The last video, I was, creating the ruffles, and I finished those, and now I'm showing you a pocket that I had created for that yellow ledger, and I actually created on both sides of it. So now what I want to do is I want to create different tabs on the paper edges for a couple of reasons. To bring in the charm of the quilt, to bring in color and texture, and also to protect the edges, when you're turning through pages a lot, especially fragile papers, they can, get torn and stuff. So some of the tabs I'll put flush, some of them I will actually leave them sticking up a bit. I just kind of choose it as I go. Right now, I am actually sorting kind of what I have to work with into different piles so that I can see what I have. That's important to me as I'm, working through this part of the process, is to see everything that I have. And wow, that was quick. I did all that really super fast. So these are like all of the, remaining quilt pieces. And then I do have a few other scraps that are not part of the quilt. This is a perfect time to use up your scraps, especially, little pieces. You can also kind of layer them together down the edge, of a page, and then just, stitch them all if you want to, or glue them. And I will glue everything at first, but then I will stitch everything. I like to have it all in place, and it just helps, for things not to slide around when you're taking them to the sewing machine. It keeps it there, as I work through the book. So I'll just work through the entire journal and, get the tabs in place where I want them. And I'll use a combination of a glue stick and a little bit of the Beacons glue. It just depends on what I'm working on. This is also a time where I will reinforce any kind of fragile pages. So I will use, some more different materials to reinforce the spines of pages. So I didn't finish that tab because I'm trying to decide if I want it to have an edge or I don't, so do I want it to stick up or do I want it to be flush? When I can't decide something, a lot of times I will get hung up. And so to prevent that, I just move on. I just keep on going, and creating and working through what I do know, because I can always come back to that. A lot of times, if I stay there too long and I'm hung up on it, a lot of time it just takes up, so much of my time, and my, just my rhythm just stops, and I can't, continue on then, because then I'm just stuck, really thinking about that part. So just moving on, is the best remedy for me. I don't know if any of you ever, have those sorts of issues. I'm sure somebody out there does, but that's really what works for me. I just keep on going, because I'll eventually come back to that and I'll know exactly what I want to do. So I use a glue stick a lot for the spines, and I do think I actually end up stitching the material down once it's all dried, but I don't always do that. Sometimes I just use the glue stick and it's enough, to just kind of give, the fragile papers just a little bit extra. So it just depends. I just kind of go with my instincts, for these sorts of things, and just, decide, what I should do at the time. Or again, once it dries, then I'll kind of decide, if it's good enough for reinforcing. So I'll just work through the book here, and I will just, decide which ones I want to use, where I want to put them. And I just, it's basically the ones that just catch my eye, for wherever they're at. The book is mostly neutral inside, so any of them would kind of really work. But, I'm also looking at the tones of the pages, and the tones in the fabric. So here, it has this brown and the peaches and the greens, which really go with the page that it's on. But then it has it's got that white background, which kind of ties in the opposite page that's more white. Which, speaking of that, that's why I really, really loved using all of Sam Poole's, the vintage doily. She's got, two kits. One's really colorful and one is the vintage where it's just, more of the white and, aged background papers. I really loved using that throughout this, using all those vintage ones. It just kept my, all the different patinas and everything kind of just in sync, So the whites of the doily bring in the lighter color pages, and then, the darker backgrounds, tie in the darker pages that I have. So I just like that. It looks pleasing to the eye for me. So I'll decide to use the other piece, because typically I don't. I just use random pieces, but for whatever reason, I really love that edge, and I was like, I'm just going to put it on the other side. I know it's going to go. It's going to look good. I'm going to go ahead and put it on to the other edge as well. And I do. And then I realized that this page is probably kind of fragile. This page actually was from a really old diary. And I don't think it had ever been written in. I don't recall. I don't think it had been written in, but it was an old diary, and it was like a leather book, and it had a locket at some point, because there's a metal, some remaining metal piece, but it's no longer there. But nobody ever wrote in it. So here I'll decide that the spine needs reinforced. And a lot of times for the spines, when I'm using cloth, there's cloth tape. You can use masking tape. I just feel like when you are going to stitch in the signatures, it's obviously easier to use things that that aren't sticky. Just, going through all the layers and having, you have less resistance if you go through things that are, not glued and don't have adhesive. So a lot of times I'll use fabric, and that just, helps a little bit more. So I try to choose thinner fabrics as well, because the thicker your spine gets, obviously the more bulk, and it pushes the pages out further. So I just try to use like a thinner, material. It's usually all it needs. It may not even need reinforced. I'm just being proactive here and just deciding that it needs to be reinforced, but it more than likely it's probably okay. And a lot of times while it's drying, but so I don't forget where it's at in the signature, I'll just kind of turn it, sideways, so that I know that that's where it goes in the book, and I'll continue on as you see me doing there. So that's a prime example of, showing how something just has that little something extra, with the surroundings, with the colors. It just, these three squares just look better than the other three squares to me. And those, Shabby Florals are from the Journal Boat. She has, quite a lot of pages that have those shabby, like kind of, I don't want to say dingy. That sounds like, like dirt, like it's dirty, but it's not really dirty, but it looks it, I guess, but it just has that shabby quality to it. But I love those florals just popping throughout this journal. And I think I might have used maybe 5 or 6 pages of the florals and then put the doily on the backside. I can't remember. When I flip through it at the end of the video, you can see them all there. So I think I have a little bit of a tough time deciding which side, I want it to be on, the busier, colors, because obviously wherever it folds, the edge that has the skinny little bits of another, block, it's going to be a busier print. So, but it didn't take too long. I knew that if it was going to take much longer, I was probably going to go ahead and just leave it there and move on to the next page that needed a tab. So not every page got a tab, but I did put it on a lot of them. I don't know. I really liked incorporating this quilt as much as possible into this journal. It just felt like the right thing to do. What I should have done, instead of machine stitching all of these tabs, would have been to incorporate some more hand stitching. That would have been really cute, to have done. And it actually still could be done. But as of right now, I didn't do any of that. I machine stitched them all. I feel like, there is hand stitching on the cover itself. So both on the outside and the inside. And so, I did pay, respects there that this was all hand stitched, but I should have also, I should have done some hand stitching, or at least added it to a couple of them. So I think I've moved into the book a little bit more. When you are creating for long periods of time, and I think I had mentioned it in the last video, it's hard to fit everything in. It's nearly impossible. If it was so easy to, download a really, really long, video, then, I would, but it's not. It takes so much time, and so it's much easier to kind of break the videos up into smaller segments. I feel like sometimes, if a video is longer than like 35 minutes, it takes forever, to upload. So if it's a little choppy, that's why. And that's just, if you make videos and you put them on YouTube, you understand, you get me. It is what it is. And up in the corner there is some of Amity Bloom's beautiful washi tapes that she has. I think that page had like a little tear in it, and so I just fixed it that way. Washi's great for that, actually, just fixing, tears or holes or, anything that you don't necessarily want to, want compromised, I guess, on your page. But it's also great just to be pretty, just to put it wherever you want, just something, nice to look at, something that's just, a little bit different on the page. Bring in color, that sort of thing. Even if it's tone on tone, it still works. So I think so much time had passed, I had like forgotten about the tab. And I was like, oh, hey, I have this tab still to do. So I decided to make it completely flush. I made the decision. So this is a shorter end of one of the florals. And I was trying to decide, what it needed, but I had this idea for the page behind it, which you'll see in a minute. So I didn't want anything that was going to be too busy on this page. So I wait a second and then I decide, I need to probably see it in place, before I make the decision. So what I did was my inside fabric of the journal, and every kit got one, is that yellow, well, kind of tan fabric, I guess, with all these like little floral images. So I am using the back side of them again, just because I like that pastel that they give. And I decide to kind of, I don't know, make them into like little stamps in a way, like little floral stamps. So I'm just gluing them in place, and then I'll stitch around those later. But I think they just look really cute there. And then I can decide now what I'm going to use for the floral page, what kind of tab I'm going to use. And I ultimately go with this lace. I'm using an eraser there to get off some excess glue. I just think this is turning out so cute. So I'm deciding here if I want to put something up there just to bring in, some kind of interest there, because it's just, such a stark page, and it's, at the beginning of the journal, and I always just feel like, you need to have kind of some sort of interest at the beginning, and all I have on the front really is the chenille, but there's writing, and then you can see the front inside cover of the journal, and so there's a lot of stuff going on there, to then turn the page and it's just blank. So I decide on this floral trim piece from my own stash, and I really don't like that little bit of the green on the bottom. It's just it'll bother me a little bit just looking at it for some reason. So I'm going to look at some things, to cover that up. It looks fine here looking at it, but wait till you see the piece on it, and then maybe you'll agree with me once I decide the piece that needs to go there. And then this will get stitched into place as well once it dries. I'm trying to remember. I think I do all the stitching off camera for all of that. It's a lot of the same stuff over and over and over again. So I'm going to choose this like lavender, gingham piece. And then look at that. I don't know. It just changed it for me. Isn't that so funny? Like just a little minor detail, and it's just, it's funny how that happens. So another idea, these are papers from the journal boat, I believe, as well. And another idea is that, well, actually they may not be. They may be from somebody else. I'm not sure. I need to look. Another thing is that if you don't have like a bunch of different, fabrics and you want to bring in some florals and things like that, I mean, you can just use paper, to do that. And so I'm deciding if I want to, but ultimately I want to keep my journal like more plain. So I will use it in one spot. But for the most part, I mean, I have enough, kind of like florals going on. But I'll show here how, you can just tear off like pieces, or a piece and, put some interest there, if you don't have something that would work. Or maybe you have florals, but you don't have them in the colors, that you want. Digitals are perfect for that. So I took a piece and I inked it a little bit. I'm just kind of showing you where you can put it somewhere. And I mean, just a small little, detail like that and how it just, brings color to the page and makes it look interesting. And I end up like with a piece that size, I think, on there. But I think it's one of the other prints I end up actually using. The pink and the yellow over there, I think. We'll see in the flip through what I ended up choosing. But even just, like a small detail, it just looks really cute. I think that's where, my love of digitals first started, was that I was creating and sometimes you just can't find the colors, in regards to like fabrics and stuff that you're looking for, or, in papers. And that was a way to incorporate that, which then, I had created then my own washi for that. So I have a video on that, and that's because I was working on a project and I couldn't find washi, that was readily available anywhere that, matched my project. And so I just created my own using, well, first I started with paper and then I used vellum, and that's how it all begins. So here we have the journal. And I think it's cute whether I put something in the pocket or not. It's just, adorable already. And I used a 5-hole pamphlet stitch. I used a wax thread. I almost always use a wax thread. I almost thought about using an embroidery floss, but I went ahead and went with the wax thread. And I created a closure on the back using a wide eyelet from We Are Memory Keepers. I really like using these. They're fun. They come in a lot of different colors. It's a 3/16 of an inch. And I mean, I think they have even like, flower shapes and things like that, and hearts and all that sort of stuff. But I basically just, it's really secure in there. And I just used this cream colored sari and just kind of created like a little loop, just like you would for like a tag. It's just obviously a lot longer. And then I left everything like really plain, inside, because, it can be decided later, what goes where, as it's created in. So this is with all my stitching, done. This is the completed journal. And I wouldn't say that it's a naked journal, but it borders on that. It's between a naked and embellished journal, but it's embellished with fabrics as opposed to a ton of different ephemera. I think it turned out spectacular. I really, really love it. And I can see myself creating more journals like this, because I enjoyed this so much, and I just loved using this, quilt and giving it, new life. I mean, how cool would it have been to have known, the owner of the quilt and, you know, show them that their quilt pieces are going so many places. I'm showing there like a tab that I could have put there to kind of hide the spots on the pocket there from, you know, aging or something had spilled or whatever. Couldn't get the spots out, but it kind of just, I don't know, it adds to it, but it can be covered up. I mean, everything can be covered up, you know? So I'm just showing you where I put all the tabs. I put in a little washi. There's the part that I stitched from that paper piece, that pattern. And then I did something really fun. I created like a little bookmark. So I just stitched it down. I just used, you know, one long piece and just folded it in half and stitched it at the top there. And then it can be moved around. There's two, you know, strands there to, you know, put it wherever you want. If you're working in, you know, two different spots in the journal, there's people who journal, you know, randomly throughout a journal, not just, you know, from front to back or whatever. So I just thought that was, you know, it was cute. It was neat to put in there. And I love all the different patinas of all the papers. I just think they're all so pretty, you know, together when you see them all. And I just put a couple things in the back pocket. But that's, you know, really the journal. I mean, I really hope you enjoyed, you know, watching this whole process and that, you know, you were able to get some ideas if you purchased the journal kit. If you didn't purchase the journal kit, you know, I hope you were able to get ideas anyway and to maybe rethink a quilt that you might, you know, consider purchasing or passing up, you know, at a thrift store or a flea market or whatever. But I really do. I hope you enjoyed this. If you have any questions, feel free to ask me. And anyway, thanks for being here. I appreciate it. And I will see you in the next video.